She was laughing, pouring wine, talking to hundreds of people, live on camera. Behind her, her boyfriend sat slumped in a chair, silent, still, unmoving. Viewers joked in the comments. "Corey looks dead back there, lol. Is he asleep? Yo, blink twice if he's okay." But no one knew. He was dead. Trisha had killed him hours before the livestream began. And for 37 chilling minutes, she smiled, sipped wine, and confessed, without ever saying the words. Tens of thousands would watch it. Not one person called for help. This isn't a movie. This isn't fiction. This is real. And it happened live. Welcome. If this is your first time here, get ready, because we don't just tell stories. We peel back the mask. We uncover the twisted truths hiding in plain sight. And if you've been with us before, you already know. Every case we cover will haunt you long after the screen goes dark. So go ahead, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and get comfortable. Because tonight, we're digging into a story so surreal, so quietly horrifying, that it left even seasoned detectives speechless. This is the case of the murder that was broadcast live, and no one noticed. Trisha Campbell was the kind of woman who could command a room without ever trying. Her energy was magnetic, her smile disarming, and her pain, raw and unfiltered, poured into the little rectangles of her smartphone screen for anyone willing to watch. She wasn't a household name, not quite. But she had a loyal audience. Almost 15,000 followers across platforms. On TikTok, she was candid. On Instagram, she was fire. But YouTube Live, that's where she really opened up. That's where she bled. Every night, almost like clockwork, she went live from her small one-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta. Cheap fairy lights flickered on the wall behind her. Jazz or lo-fi beats played softly in the background. And she would talk. About love. About trauma. About her dreams of becoming something more than a girl with a past and a ring light. She spoke often of a man named Corey Marks. Corey was the mystery in the corner of her life. Older by 7 years. Rugged. Quiet. Sometimes he'd show up in the background, grabbing a drink or lighting a cigarette. He rarely spoke. When he did, his voice was low and sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Trisha described him as the love of her life. The only man who ever saw her, really saw her. But in the same breath, she'd hint at nights that ended in yelling. Holes in walls. Silent treatments that lasted for days. Most viewers assumed it was drama for content. It always is, until it isn't. But there were signs. So many signs. In a live stream 2 weeks before the murder, she appeared with a bruise just under her eye. She blamed it on a cabinet door. In another, she was visibly drunk, slurring her words as she said, "If anything happens to me, y'all remember I said I didn't fall." It was brushed off as performance. The truth? It was a warning. Trisha had met Corey in 2020, just as the world was shutting down. She was working 2 jobs, bartender by night, freelance makeup artist by day. He had just been released from prison. Assault and battery. Aggravated robbery. But he had that charm, the kind that masks control as concern. They moved in together fast. Too fast. Within 4 months, they were living under one roof, sharing bills, passwords, secrets. What no one saw was how quickly Corey began to isolate her. Friends stopped calling. Her mother complained that Trisha never visited anymore. She started turning down makeup gigs, saying Corey didn't like her being around other men. One by one, she disappeared from her old life. But not from the internet. The internet was her last escape. Her one remaining connection to a world outside Corey's rules. And that's what made what happened next so chilling. The night of the live stream, Trisha had been drinking. A neighbor would later testify that they heard yelling around 5:30 p.m. A loud crash. Then silence. Nothing unusual, they said. Just another Tuesday. At 7:11 p.m., Trisha went live. She looked composed. Not her usual bubbly self, but calm. Her eyes were puffy. Her hair slightly unkempt. She wore a red silk robe. Her wine glass was full. "Hey y'all," she said. "We're keeping it real tonight. Realer than ever." Behind her, Corey sat in the brown recliner. The same one her followers had seen in a dozen other streams. His head was tilted to the side, his eyes closed, lips slightly parted. The comments came quickly. "Corey vibing or nah? He looked dead skull. Girl, what y'all arguing about now?" She didn't react. Didn't even glance back at him. For the next 37 minutes, she talked about betrayal. About lies. About the moment you realize someone's love comes with chains. She never cried. She didn't raise her voice. She just talked. "I used to think love meant sacrificing everything," she said, looking straight into the lens. "But sometimes, love is just fear with a pretty face." People assumed she was being dramatic. That she was talking in metaphors. But she wasn't. She was talking about Corey. Because just 90 minutes before she hit go live, Corey Marks was alive. And now he wasn't. What viewers couldn't see, what the camera didn't show, was the deep stab wound in his chest. A wound delivered with a kitchen knife. One clean strike, straight into the heart. No struggle. No mess. Trisha had covered the blood with a throw blanket. Set the wine glass on the side table. Lit a candle. And then hit record. It was as if she wanted the world to see what she had done, without ever saying it out loud. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was narcissism. Or maybe it was the final act of a woman who had been silenced for too long. The stream ended quietly. No screaming. No breakdown. Just a soft, tired smile and the words. "Good night, y'all. Be safe out there." She shut the camera off. Sat for a moment in silence. And then, at 8:02 p.m., she picked up her phone and dialed 911. I think I killed him," she said. No panic. No tears. "I think I killed him." When police arrived 6 minutes later, the live stream was still uploading to the cloud. Corey's body was still warm. Trisha was sitting cross-legged on the couch, staring at the dark screen of her phone. The camera had captured everything. And yet, no one watching had seen the truth. No one had called the police. Because no one believed it was real. The footage is haunting. Even in the raw silence of a police interrogation room, investigators couldn't deny it. There was something deeply unsettling about watching someone talk about pain so openly, while sitting inches away from the body of the man they killed. The live stream began at 7:11 p.m. Trisha titled it, "Let's talk about honesty. I'm done pretending." To her followers, it looked like just another episode in the ongoing saga of Trisha and Corey. The couple had become infamous in their niche corner of the internet, arguing, reconciling, oversharing, repeating. The drama was part of the brand. But this time, something felt different. She appeared calmer than usual. Her robe slipped slightly off one shoulder. Her wine glass glistened in the dim, moody lighting. Her voice, slow and deliberate, never broke above a whisper. She started by saying, "I don't even know why I'm doing this tonight. I guess I just need to say things before I lose the chance." At that moment, the camera panned slightly to the right. Just enough for Corey to be seen in the background, his head tilted back in the recliner. He looked asleep. Peaceful, almost. The chat lit up immediately. "Y'all okay? Is Corey drunk or dead LMO? Girl, what's going on? Why he so still?" She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned in closer to the camera, eyes glassy, and said, "I used to think that if you loved someone hard enough, they'd stop hurting you. That they'd see you. But, you can't save a person who only sees you as something to control." Her voice broke slightly on the last word. The comments started flying. "Talk to us, sis. Corey did something, didn't he? Blink twice if you need help." But no one called the police. No one paused to question whether something horrific had already happened. Because it was easier to assume it was just content. That's what made it so terrifying. At exactly 7:24 p.m., Trisha lifted the wine glass and said, "To freedom." She sipped. Smiled faintly. Then, for almost a full minute, she just stared into the camera. Not speaking. Not blinking. Just watching. It was like a silent scream stretched across her face. In the background, Corey's body remained motionless. His lips had gone pale. The color was draining from his hands. Still. No one noticed. Or rather, no one believed what they were seeing. It's a strange truth about our digital age, when everything is performative, even real horror can be mistaken for entertainment. At 7:34 p.m., a user typed, "She gonna be on Snapped one day, I swear," loudly crying face. And another replied, "She already is, and we watching the pilot episode." The chat kept scrolling. Dozens of laughing emojis. Crying faces. Keyboard slaps. Digital noise over a very real death. But one message, from a viewer named @Rainwatcher24, was different. It read, "This isn't funny. Something feels off. Somebody call someone. Please." That comment was buried almost immediately under a wave of laughing gifs and jokes. No one did anything. Because nobody thought to take her seriously. Not even when she ended the live stream with a chilling final line. "Y'all remember what I said tonight, okay? If you ever find yourself scared of the person you love, leave before you lose your voice. Or your life." Then she leaned over. Shut off the camera. And sat back. Corey Marks had been dead for over an hour. The knife was hidden beneath the throw blanket on his lap. A single wound to the heart. The coroner would later say he likely died within 30 seconds. No signs of struggle. No defensive wounds. Just silence. Which meant Trisha had done this calmly. Deliberately. Possibly even premeditated. When the police arrived at 8:08 p.m., she was exactly where she had been during the stream. Same position. Same robe. Same faint perfume of red wine and vanilla candles. An officer later testified that the room smelled like nothing had happened. That was the most disturbing part. The body. The camera. The wine. The quiet. It was as if she had paused time and decided to talk to the world while it stood still around her. She didn't cry during the arrest. She didn't resist. She simply said, "I told them. I said it all on the live. They just didn't hear me." And she was right. She had told the world. But no one listened. Because no one thought it was real. By the time the crime scene tape was up, the live stream had already been reposted on at least 3 fan pages. One version had captions. One had reaction commentary. One had eerie background music layered in post. Within hours, the footage had gone viral. But to investigators, it wasn't viral content, it was digital evidence. A time-stamped, frame-by-frame confession, wrapped in riddles, sarcasm, and emotional exhaustion. They pulled security footage from the apartment hallway. Between 4:45 and 7 p.m., not a single soul entered or exited. It confirmed one thing for sure, Trisha had been alone with Corey. Whatever happened, happened behind a locked door, inside the walls of their private storm. Forensics recovered the kitchen knife. Blood-soaked but wiped down. No fingerprints on the blade, only on the handle, hers. The recliner cushion underneath Corey's body had absorbed most of the blood, but a faint smear on the floor showed signs of post-mortem staging. She'd adjusted his body. Arranged the scene. She'd made it presentable. In the bathroom, police found the clothes she was wearing earlier that day, sweatpants and a black tank top, soaked in blood and tucked in the laundry basket beneath a towel. She had cleaned herself up before going live. A neighbor on the second floor told officers she heard Trisha's shower running around 6:15 p.m., long before anyone realized Corey was dead. The timeline was tight. Intentional. Calculated. By dawn, the headlines were brutal. Murder live streamed to thousands, victim unnoticed as girlfriend confessed on camera. Social media star or silent killer? The dark side of digital fame. Across comment sections, the same debate exploded. Was this cold-blooded murder, or the final breaking point of a woman trapped in a cycle of invisible abuse? People scoured Trisha's old content, frame by frame. They clipped out bruises, analyzed voice tone, dissected glances Corey gave from the background. Suddenly, every old video was evidence. Every eye twitch and wince had meaning. But the truth was blurry. There were no police reports. No restraining orders. No documented history of domestic violence. Just hints. Shadows. Emotional undercurrents only visible in hindsight. The prosecution didn't care for digital speculation. They saw the knife. The blood. The silence. The wine. The live stream. To them, this wasn't about abuse. It was about control. They believed Trisha had planned it, maybe not days in advance, but certainly hours before the live stream. The cleanup, the wardrobe change, the way she talked directly to the camera as if narrating her own crime novel, all of it pointed to one thing. This wasn't panic. It wasn't self-defense. It was performance. Meanwhile, in a separate room at the police department, Corey's mother sat trembling with disbelief. She hadn't seen her son in 3 months. Trisha had cut off contact. The last thing she received was a voicemail from Corey saying, "Things are rocky. I'll reach out when I can." That voicemail was dated 6 weeks before his death. She told detectives her son had always been private, proud, and impulsive, but violent. She shook her head. He could be cold, she said. But he wasn't a monster. Still, monsters rarely look like monsters, until it's too late. Corey's autopsy revealed high levels of alcohol and traces of diazepam in his system. Enough to cause heavy sedation. Enough to make him slow, possibly defenseless. When asked about the drugs, Trisha didn't deny anything. She simply said, "I needed him quiet." The district attorney's office moved fast. This wasn't just another domestic homicide, it was a case that captured the internet's attention and demanded a public reckoning. The live stream was preserved in its entirety. It would later become Exhibit A in court. But long before a jury was selected, the world had already passed its judgment. And no one could agree. Was she a victim turned vigilante? Or a calculating woman who knew exactly how to turn a death into a show? The courtroom was packed. Reporters. Bloggers. True crime podcasters with microphones clipped to their collars. And behind them, a small cluster of regular people, some who had watched the live stream in real time, others who had only seen the story unfold through viral clips and headlines. Trisha Campbell stood silently beside her defense attorney, wearing a gray suit 2 sizes too large and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back tight. No expression. No tears. She stared straight ahead. The prosecution opened strong. They didn't need theatrics. They had a weapon. A motive. A timeline. A confession recorded live on camera, viewed over 4 million times before it was taken down. "This isn't self-defense," the district attorney said, pacing slowly. "This is premeditation disguised as performance. This is a woman who cleaned the blood off her body, poured a glass of wine, and hit go live, not to ask for help, but to control the narrative." The jury watched in stunned silence as the live stream was played in full. Trisha's voice echoed through the courtroom, soft and eerie. Her smile. Her toast. Her final words. All of it, projected on a giant screen for 12 strangers to absorb. Her defense team didn't flinch. They prepared for this. When it was their turn, they flipped the narrative. They painted a picture of a woman isolated, controlled, and emotionally broken down over years of psychological abuse. They showed messages from Corey that had never been posted publicly, texts laced with threats, guilt, and manipulation. One read. "If you ever leave me, I'll make sure no one else ever touches you again." Another. "Go ahead. Say something online. I dare you. You know what I'm capable of." The defense argued that Tricia had no police reports because she'd been conditioned not to speak. That her silence was not proof of safety, but proof of fear. They called to the stand a former friend of Tricia's who said she once saw Corey grab her by the jaw and whisper, "Don't embarrass me." They showed screenshots of bruises, subtle ones, from old Instagram stories. They showed late-night deleted tweets, fragments of a cry for help buried in vague language. But the turning point came when a forensic psychologist took the stand. She had spent hours with Tricia behind closed doors. She testified that Tricia exhibited signs of battered woman syndrome, a psychological pattern seen in prolonged domestic abuse victims. She said Tricia's decision to live-stream the aftermath of Corey's death was not about fame, nor cold-blooded confession, but a psychological break, a final attempt to reclaim control, to speak her truth in the only way she knew how. The courtroom fell into moral chaos. Because now, the question wasn't whether Tricia killed Corey. That was undeniable. The question was, why? Was it an act of cold violence? Or the final scream of someone who had been suffocating for far too long? For the jury, the decision wasn't easy. They deliberated for 6 days. 6 long days where the public debated outside the courthouse. One camp believed she was a murderer. Another, a martyr. A third group wasn't sure what to believe, only that the truth, like most things online, was murky. When the verdict was finally read, the room held its breath. Guilty of manslaughter in the first degree. Not murder. Not self-defense. A decision that split the courtroom and the country. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 9. As she was led away in handcuffs, Tricia didn't cry. She just looked once toward the gallery, where a young woman, one of her followers, stood holding a sign that read, "I believed you." The verdict didn't end the story. If anything, it cracked it wide open. Within hours of Tricia Campbell being found guilty of first-degree manslaughter, hashtags exploded across social media. Hashtag Justice for Tricia. Hashtag he was abusive. Hashtag she planned it. Hashtag the livestream killer. TikTok became a battlefield of narratives. Edits set to moody soundtracks portrayed her as a broken woman with no way out. Others mocked her, remixed her live stream with dramatic voiceovers and memes. One creator posted a slowed-down clip of her final words, "If you're scared of the person you love, leave," over eerie music, captioned, "She told the truth, and no one listened." It went viral. But so did another. A side-by-side video comparing her live stream to scenes from scripted thrillers. The caption read, "She rehearsed this. Don't fall for it." The court of public opinion was split straight down the middle. Even among her followers, the divide was sharp. Some unfollowed, angry at being manipulated. Others followed more closely than ever, digging through her old videos, looking for missed clues. On Reddit, a thread titled, "Did you notice this in Tricia's April 4th stream?" broke down her facial expressions, background objects, and offhand comments in forensic detail. It had over 80,000 upvotes within 3 days. People analyzed the bruise near her collarbone in a story from March. Her long pauses. Her cry. So did 2 major production studios. One wanted to tell Tricia's story as a cautionary tale about ignoring red flags in relationships. The other wanted to focus on how social media has blurred the lines between entertainment and reality, between real death and digital detachment. But neither got her. From prison, Tricia refused all interview requests. Except for one. In a letter handwritten in looping cursive, she responded to a journalist's request with a single sentence. They only saw what they wanted to see. No elaboration. No remorse. No denial. It left people debating whether it was the cryptic signature of a manipulator, or the final truth from someone no one ever really listened to. Meanwhile, Corey's family launched a wrongful death lawsuit against Tricia and the streaming platform that hosted the live video. They argued that the platform should have intervened, flagged suspicious behavior, or at least had human moderators watching. The lawsuit opened a new debate. What is the responsibility of tech companies when trauma happens in real time? Can artificial intelligence detect real danger behind a smiling face and a wine glass? At the heart of the debate was one haunting fact. Over 1,200 people watched a woman sit beside a dead man, and nobody noticed. Or maybe they did. Maybe they saw it. But in a world where everything is content, it's easier to believe horror is performance than to believe it's real. Years passed. The original live stream, though deleted, continued to circulate in fragments. Mirror uploads. Reaction videos. Commentary essays. For every takedown request, 3 more copies emerged. It became a case study in college media classes. A topic in podcasts. A template for low-budget horror scripts. And through it all, one question refused to go away. Was Tricia Campbell a murderer, or a warning sign that went ignored too long? It's easy to point fingers in hindsight. To say what should have been done. What you would have done. How you would have seen the signs. How you would have left sooner. Reported faster. Acted differently. But truth doesn't live in hindsight. It lives in those quiet, suffocating moments before a decision is made. Moments like Tricia's, when fear looks like love, when bruises are blurred by apologies, when control is mistaken for care. Maybe Tricia Campbell was a victim who snapped. Maybe she was a manipulator who planned every move. Maybe she's something more complicated than either label allows. And maybe that's what makes this story so hard to swallow. Because it forces us to admit that we don't really know the people we follow online. We know their edits. Their filters. Their best angles. Their pain, only when it's performative, or palatable. Corey wasn't perfect. Neither was Tricia. But in the end, 2 lives were lost. One to a bullet. And one to the prison of public memory. So the next time you scroll past a tear-streaked live stream, or a vague tweet, or a whispered confession in a vlog, ask yourself, is it content? Or is it a cry for help? And what if the difference is only clear after someone dies? If this story made you pause, if it stirred something inside you, don't just click away. Start a conversation. Share this video. Check in on someone. Listen closely, not just to their words, but to what's missing in between. Because in a world where silence is deadly, being seen might be someone's only lifeline. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We'll be back with more stories that shake you. Stories that stay. Until then, stay safe. And stay human.